Hey everybody, it's James here from NeuralNet Games, and today we're talking about the Tinkerer. This is my beginner build path series, and what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about which cards you should take and why at every single level, and then we're also going to talk about card swaps, so which card you remove when you do take another card at a certain level, so that you've got a nice synergized template to base your Tinkerer decisions on. This is not a min-max build. I won't be talking about higher prosperity items. I also won't be talking about enhancements. I've got another series. It's called the Ultimate Guide series. I'll put a link down in the playlist. You can go and check that out. And also, I do have a series on items. It's my item discussion series. I go prosperity by prosperity. There's going to be a link down in the description as well. So what we're going to do first here is we're going to go to level 1 cards. But before that, I just wanted to give you a piece of advice. If you're new to Gloomhaven, the Tinkerer is generally considered the weakest class. I've also got a list. Wow, I'm plugging a lot of things here. I've also got a tier video where I rank all of the different classes. So I'll put a link to that in the description as well. So if you want to see, which classes are more powerful, etc., go ahead and make sure and check that out. But the Tinkerer is generally considered the weakest class. However, at very low levels, Prosperity 1 and 2, kind of when you're just first starting out in Gloomhaven, Tinkerer is actually pretty good. His hand size of 12, it really helps you kind of like tank hits when you need to. You have a lot of flexibility. You're a good jack of all trades, and you've got some pretty powerful level 1 loss attack cards. So if you are just starting this game, take the Tinkerer, because later on it's not going to be as viable, and you're going to wish you'd taken the Tinkerer when it was actually a good time to do so. Okay, let's get started with level 1 cards. Exactly which cards you're going to take with you. The first level 1 card we're taking is Reinvigorating Elixir. The top heal 3, range 3, that is a standard power level heal for a top heal, so it's fine, nothing special. Initiative, not quite where we want it to be, would be better if it was lower or way higher, so for when we want to go fast or when we want to go slow. The bottom is actually quite a powerful effect, but we don't have any top moves until Curative Aerosol at level 7, so it can be hard to pull off. The easiest way to do this is to just, go slow one turn and get in position beside somebody. Go fast the next turn and pull this off. Just make sure you're coordinating with your allies so they know what your plan is. Like, hey, I'm going to go quick next turn. Don't go super fast. Make sure you go slower than me so I can, give you all of your cards back. When you're playing with certain classes, this can actually be extremely powerful. The next card we're taking is Enhancement Field. Top is just a standard power level attack, decent flexibility at range 3, good for level 1, nothing special, but fine. The bottom, though, is really interesting. And for all of you early players, this is what's called an aura card. So regardless of when you play the card, your allies have to be adjacent to you to get the bonus. So let's say you play it, and then it's your ally's turn. If they move into position next to you, they get that bonus even if they weren't adjacent to you at the exact time the card was played. Also, very, very good card to help out AoE attacks. If you're playing with a Spellweaver and they're next to you, this card's damage can really add up because it's helping you and it's helping them. And in some party compositions, this card can output ridiculous amounts of damage over a scenario. You may get 3, 4, 5 extra damage per use out of it. Pairs well for yourself with Reviving Shock. The next card we're taking is Ink Bomb. This top, it is quite powerful for level 1. If you can hit 3 targets, that's 12 damage out of a level 1 loss. That is definitely up there for level 1 losses. It does empower Dark as well, which is useful for some classes, although it's not really useful for the starting classes. And I don't want to spoil anything, but in the right party, creating dark can be quite helpful. Initiative at 74 is late, not quite as late as we would want. Generally, you would like something 80 plus so that when you want to go last, you can go last. And then the bottom is just one of our great move 4s. Don't underestimate the power of taking a decent amount of move, and move 4 at level 1 is above the curve. 3 would be average, 4 would be good. The next card we're taking is Reviving Shock. Attack 2, target 2 at range 3 is pretty strong at level 1. 4 damage is above the curve. However, against shielded enemies, you're going to lose a little bit of that value. When you do pair it with Enhancement Field, like I said before, this is going to be attack 3, range 3, target 2. That's going to be pretty darn good for a level 1 reusable combo. And then we've got the bottom of this card. And I want to compare this to Energizing Tonic. So heal 5, range 2. Exact same abilities. However, heal 5 range 2 on a bottom ability is better than on a top. So when you're looking at a card and its value, make sure you're understanding whether it's top or bottom. Actions on the bottom, like this, are generally better than on the top because of opportunity cost. If your heal 5 range 2 is on the top, usually that prevents you from attacking. Some classes have bottom attacks, but they're far more rare than top attacks. And so you want to make sure you're considering that when you look at the value, because in Gloomhaven, damage is king. You want to be dealing as much damage as you can, as quickly as you can, because a dead monster can't attack you back. Don't get caught in the standard tropes, of support, healer, tank, stuff like that. Almost always in Gloomhaven, prioritizing damage over other abilities is going to make scenarios a lot easier for you. And so whether an ability is on the top or bottom changes the value of the ability. So this heal 5 range 2, while it's not great, it's still better than Energizing Tonic's heal 5 range 2 on the top. The next card we're taking is Potent Potables. And you want to remember that this applies to any healing action. So case number 1, improves healing potions. So a minor healing potion, because it's a heal action, gets the +2. It works on each heal of Curative Aerosol, and so it'll be heal 4, heal 4. 2 heal 4s for a total net increase of 4 heal. And then on something like Restorative Mist, it's going to heal 3 on all allies. So this card is actually decently powerful. It's one of the better healing cards in the entire game, in my opinion, just because in larger parties, this card can give you 12 heal, 16 heal extra. Like, it can really add up. However, I wouldn't play this card in a 2-player game because you want to focus more on damage and preemptive damage mitigation instead of reactively waiting for you or one of your allies to be hit and then having to heal. So instead of this card at 2 players, take Harmless Contraption. I think it makes more sense. And just remember that you always want to try and focus on damage. So hopefully, between these last 2 cards, I've really given you a good understanding of some of the mindset and how you want to work with cards. And so I've started a Patreon. If you're finding my videos helpful, that's the best way to support me. I've got all kinds of cool benefits in there, so go ahead and check it out. And then I've also got a Twitter account where I post cool board game news and fun stuff. I'm gonna put a link to both of those in the pinned comment. The next card we're going to take is Flamethrower. Flamethrower is a pretty good strong melee attack, pairs well with the bottom of Enhancement Field. Adding that wound is really, really nice, and then we have the added bonus of creating fire. All good. You do have to be in melee range, but that's okay. Especially at lower levels, being in melee range with the Tinkerer is not bad. We've got the middle health track, and we've got 12 cards, which actually makes us like as tough as a brute. No problem. Those extra 2 cards mitigate a lot of damage if you have to throw them away or lose them to, prevent that damage. And so we're okay with being in melee range at lower levels. And then the bottom of this card, Shield 1, affects self and all adjacent allies. Again, this is an aura card, so your allies have to be adjacent to you to receive the benefit. They don't have to be adjacent to you when the card is played. The next card we're taking is Hook Gun. And this card, it's not powerful, but it does have some fairly decent utility. We can pull monsters through traps. This is generally harder to do than pushing them. Pull is worse than push, but we can pull them through traps. Just remember, a pull has to move the monster closer to you. Sometimes you've got two hexes, the way the hex grids work, and one looks closer to you, but it's actually not. It's actually equidistant. So just make sure that when you're mapping out your pull path, that you're actually mapping it out correctly and that the hex is closer to you than where the monster started. And then the bottom of this, loot 2, this is great for, a last room in the scenario kind of situation, because loot 2, it covers 18 hexes versus 6. A loot 2 is 3 times as powerful as a loot 1, so great for snagging that late game loot. And yeah, overall, not the greatest card, but at level 1, it's definitely going to be good enough for us to take. The next card we're taking is Toxic Bolt. Top is not overly strong, but poison is a fairly decent effect, and we are empowering Earth, which can help our allies, can especially help the Cragheart. It does have quite good initiative, one of our best initiatives, and so this is going to help us apply the poison first to allow our friends to go and attack the same monster afterwards, utilizing the poison. Remember, the poison does not apply on this attack. You don't get +1 damage from it. Poison applies afterwards. So it's going to help you take down, a big tough shielded elite. It's going to help you guys output some extra damage. It's going to help your party output extra damage on a tough monster. And then the bottom, attack 5 range 2 for a loss is not very good, but remember the concept of, is it a bottom or is it a top? Because it's a bottom attack, you can pair it with a top attack and give yourself a lot of extra burst damage, so it's actually a fairly decent bottom. One I end up using quite a bit, because as you get a little higher level, the top attack is not amazing, but having a bottom extra 5 damage on, in addition to a top attack is really going to allow you to, burst damage and focus fire a monster down that you really need to get rid of quickly. So because of that, the bottom is actually pretty good. The next card we're taking is Proximity Mine. Usually placing traps is pretty underpowered, and I would say that in this case it is, but 6 damage unblockable, like shields don't affect it, etc. They suffer the damage. 6 damage at level 1 is actually pretty strong. Throw this in a doorway and you're going to get a melee monster with it. And so it's actually pretty decent at level 1. It kind of peters out later on, but if anytime you can put it in a doorway, somebody's going to hit it. Earlier on, it's better too because there are less flying monsters. Just remember that. Check monsters before you place the trap, because it's so easy to miss that little flying icon on the card, and then all of a sudden you're like, that trap isn't doing anything. Some monsters flew over it, the other ranged monsters are sitting behind it, and nobody's going over it and taking the damage. I've done that more times than I would care to admit. But the real reason we take this is basically the move 4. As you cycle through your cards, you're going to lose some of them, right? When you rest, you throw away a card. You're going to throw away moves sometimes. So having a little bit of extra move, having this extra move 4 actually helps us just not worry about throwing away some other cards that have move 4 if they happen to come up on a short rest or something like that. The next card we're taking is Net Shooter, and this is one of my favorite level 1 cards for the Tinkerer, probably my favorite. Every time I play, it just seems to be so useful. So, 1, it can hit 3 targets, then it can do 3 damage per target, then it immobilizes them, and then you can gain 1 XP. So if you hit 3 targets, that's 9 damage, immobilizing 3 monsters, getting 3 experience. That's going to be really good for you. That is a great level 1 loss. I always find this card so useful. I'm always getting a couple melee monsters with it, and that stops them from attacking most of the time unless they have that one annoying range card come up from their, their AI deck or whatever. But it's just so good. I love it. The initiative's good on it, and the bottom is also quite good too. So if you go late one turn and move into position next to a monster and then use this card to go fast, you can immobilize that monster and move away. That can sometimes nerf a melee monster, so both halves are really good. Use the bottom until you need to use the top. The next card we're going to talk about is Restorative Mist. And this card may not look like a lot, but it has so much flexibility and utility. I use it all the time and it's always good. The top is just a standard heal, but it has our second best initiative overall at 17. So when we want to go first, this is the card we're playing. And the real greatness of this card is the bottom. This is a poison and wound remover. You get to move while doing it, and so there's very little opportunity cost. And then if you pump it up with potent potables, I mean, it can just get ridiculous in a larger party where you're moving and healing 6 or healing 9. I mean, it's a very, very good card. It's one of the few healing cards I recommend always, like even in 2-player, because, you know, moving up to your buddy and removing poison, wound, etc. can be so helpful when you're a 2-player group, because sometimes you may not have quite enough healing when you've only got 2 classes. And so this is just a great way to move, reposition, do all your normal stuff. You still get to top attack and you get to heal or remove those conditions. The next card we're taking, and I think I lied on Net Shooter. I think Stun Shot is my favorite, especially at lower player counts. At higher player counts, probably Net Shooter, but at lower player counts, this reusable stun, I just abuse it. I use it as much as I can to crowd control and help my other ally. Like 2-player, it's so good. It doesn't look like that much to stun one monster, but when you have lower monster counts, it really starts to add up. It's got good initiative, and it has a good move 4. And this is why I like taking Proximity Mine, is that even though this card is a move 4, I basically never play it for the move 4. And you've always got to be thinking about that when you're choosing your cards. You've got an amazing top. The move on the bottom, it doesn't really count. It doesn't, because you're not going to be able to use it for that move very often. So you've got to, you know, take that into consideration when saying, like, do I have enough move? You don't just look at the move 4 and go, yeah, I've got this move 4, because it's, you know, essentially unusable. Almost always you're going to be like, no, I'd rather stun than use this move 4. Our first sideboard card is Harmless Contraption. This is actually a fairly useful card at lower levels, like at, you know, scenario level 1 or 2 at the most, because it can tank a couple hits for you and it will keep up with you for the most part at 2 move. And so it's actually not too bad. In 2-player, take this over Potent Potables. But at 3 and 4-player, I think you should be taking Potent Potables, especially at lower levels. You can really dish out some extra heal, and it can just, you know, it really adds up to a lot. And the bottom heal 2 range 3 on this is pretty good as well. Having, like I said, having a heal on the bottom is better than having a heal on the top, because it doesn't stop you from attacking, and because we have lots of ranged attacks, we could definitely sit still and heal with this bottom and attack with the top. So it's the best of our sideboard cards, but, you know, 3-4 player sideboard, 2-player, take it with you. Our second sideboard card is Energizing Tonic, and this card has a bunch of problems, which really sucks because Initiative 16 would be really helpful for us. The first problem is it's a double loss. So the problem with a double loss is sometimes you don't want to use either of those losses early on. Like early on, you may not need a move 6 and you may not need a heal 5. What if your party doesn't take damage until the second or third room of the scenario? It can definitely happen. That means you're stuck playing this card as a basic attack 2 or a basic move 2, and that's just not a good way of going about playing a scenario, because it essentially just reduces your effectiveness. You should only be playing a basic move or a basic attack if things go horribly wrong, or there is a couple classes out there that can kind of use a basic attack strategy. That's spoiler territory, but I don't want anyone calling me out on it. So the top of this card is just not that good. Yeah, it's heal 5, but it's only range 2, which is a bit of a pain, and opportunity cost. It is taking the place of an attack. No good. The bottom move 6 is fine, but because it's paired with such a situational top that we can't use, it's a loss. It's not very good. Like if this was like an attack 3 range 3 reusable on top. This move 6 would be great for when we really need to pull out a big move, but because it isn't, it's just not good. Our last sideboard card is Volatile Concoction, and the top of this is just rank. It is so bad. Compared to Toxic Bolt. Toxic Bolt is just attack 2 poison at range 3. This is put a 2 damage poison trap down that flying monsters will never be hit by unless you remove flying from them. That's common, not. Or, you know, other monsters, they'll just path around the trap all the time. Once in a while, you can use this to alter a monster's path where it'll be advantageous to your party, but that's a very specific situation. And then the bottom, it's awful too, unless you have a consistent source of ice from somebody else and they don't need that source of ice to do anything. Then it can actually be pretty good to give somebody back 2 discards every single rest cycle. Like, think about abusing a card like the Spellweaver's Inferno. If you could use that card twice every rest cycle, I mean, it would be even more game breaking than it already is. Okay, let's talk level 2 cards, and at level 2 I'm taking Disorienting Flash, and I'm not taking Stamina Booster. I think the top of Disorienting Flash is actually fairly decent. Yeah, if you compare it to Stun Shot or something like that, it's not as good because Stun Shot does a damage and it's reusable, but we have a 12 card hand size, and this allows us to play more losses than most other classes, and I find myself using this card all the time. So the muddle and target all adjacent enemies and the move 2 on the bottom is also not that bad. Like, this can provide a little bit of defense and allow us to move, so good there. Stamina Booster is actually a pretty good card too. Heal 4, range 3, that's above the curve even for level 2. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot more than heal 3, but it is, I mean, it is quite a bit more when you're talking such small numbers. And then the bottom of this, one ally within range 3 may recover one of their lost cards. That can be very useful in certain situations. There are some, you know, unlockable classes out there that have very powerful lost cards, and giving them that back could be, you know, really, really good. However, I think it just makes more sense for us at this point to take Disorienting Flash because, like I said, that 12 card hand size, and it just gives us extra crowd control, which is better, in my opinion, at this point than Stamina Booster and its heal and its bottom ability. So, what are we removing? Well, we're taking out Hook Gun. I just don't think it's powerful enough. It was okay for level 1, but now we've got, you know, some better options. We've already got enough attack, and so we're gonna, you know, put in Disorienting Flash, and we're going to remove Hook Gun. At level 3, we've got Crankbow, and we've got Tinkerer's Tools, and I'm taking Crankbow. Tinkerer's Tools is just awful. The top is so bad. Why would I want to disarm a trap when I could pull or push a monster through it or force it to move through it via some sort of ability? I mean, very rarely are you going to want to take a top action to just simply disarm a trap. On top of that, the bottom of this is terrible too. Even if the abilities were just reversed, it would be better because at least we could move and place a stun trap in a doorway when we opened it or something along those lines and then block the door. But because it's on the bottom when we don't have any top moves until level 7 with Curative Aerosol, I mean, how are we actually going to pull this off? It's almost never going to work. Crankbow is not even that great, but it does have a decent top where, I mean, the attack at 6 is not quite strong enough, but it does have 5 range, and that can really come into play sometimes when you don't want to close the gap and you still want to do something effective. So it is not overpowered, but actually pretty useful. And another reason to take it is the bottom move 4. So what are we going to remove? Well, we're going to remove Proximity Mine and slot in Crankbow. because Crankbow, the move 4, it just straight up replaces the move 4 on the bottom of proximity mine, so we don't lose any movement. And then the top is just the same amount of damage. Yeah, it's not suffer damage, but doing an attack at range 5, you're going to be able to hit so much easier than using proximity mine. So this card is basically just a straight upgrade to it. At level 4, we have Dangerous Contraption and we have Microbots. And I'm taking neither. They're both awful. Microbots is so bad. The top is, I mean, it's okay. It's heal 6, range 3 is not terrible, but because it's a double loss, it makes it so much worse. And then the bottom move 3, loot 1. Whoop-de-doo. For a loss? Come on. No. Just not going to be worth it. And then we've got Dangerous Contraption. Compare the top to Gnawing Horde, which is a level 1 Mind Thief summon. Dangerous Contraption is 1 move better. At level 4, this is not going to be a strong enough summon. And then the move on the bottom of Dangerous Contraption, we've already got 3 other cards that have move 4, so we just don't need it. So what am I taking? I'm going back and taking Stamina Booster. That heal 4 is going to come in handy now, and maybe even, giving somebody back a lost card is going to be handy. And so we'll take Stamina Booster, and we're going to remove Invigorating Elixir, and we just don't really need Invigorating Elixir anymore. It's not going to be good enough. We've got the better heal now from Stamina Booster. At level 5, we have Disintegration Beam and we have Noxious Vials. And at this level, I'm taking Disintegration Beam, even though Noxious Vials is good. Disintegration Beam bottom, moving and disarming a monster, doesn't sound like much. It's amazing. It is so good to move and disarm. And then the top can really do some good work as well. Noxious Vials, the top is really good too. I mean, giving somebody back a small consumed item can break the game. In certain party comps, or if you've got certain items, Noxious Vials can actually be better, but because I'm not counting enhancements and items in this guide, we're going to take Disintegration Beam because it always works no matter what build, what items, what party, etc. And then the bottom of Noxious Vials I also really like too. You can pair it with any of our top attacks, and you can, pair it with like Ink Bomb, right? 3 targets, 3 damage each in poison. Then Ink Bomb, the attack is increased to 5, 4 plus 1 from the poison. That's 24 damage. Yeah, you have to play 2 lost cards to do it, but man, does it feel good when you do it. It's really, really fun. And it's not insanely powerful, but 24 damage plus modifiers. On average, that's going to be 30 total damage from 2 cards at range. That's going to be pretty damn strong. So even though we're taking Disintegration Beam, it's really quite... So what are we removing? Well, we're removing Potent Potables for a couple reasons. First, we just added another top loss. So when we play Disintegration Beam, we lose it. Potent Potables is also a loss. Also, we've added Stamina Booster recently, which is going to give us some more heal. And you may say, well, don't we want Potent Potables because we have Stamina Booster and more heal? Not really. You want to use Potent Potables on multi-heals, like Curative Aerosol, right? So that you're maximizing each charge. So it doesn't really pair super well with Stamina Booster. Sometimes you won't even need the 6 heal and it will be a waste. So if you're focused on healing though, you can actually get rid of Flamethrower. That's another top loss. You get rid of Flamethrower, you can keep Potent Potables, but in a standard build, Potent Potables is out and Disintegration Beam is in. At level 6, we have Gas Canister and we have Auto Turret, and I'm taking neither. Let's talk about why. The top of Auto Turret has some problems. 1, you can easily waste these attacks. 2, at higher levels, enemies have more shields, and to attack is just not strong enough. 3, you're attacking with range. If you're next to a monster, you will be attacking at disadvantage. For all these reasons, this card is just not worth it. You're only going to get maybe 3-4 attacks out of it, and sometimes they're not going to do any damage. I don't like this card at all. I don't understand Of course I research these things when I make these guides. I have my own opinions. I've been playing this game a long time, but I always go and look just to make sure that I haven't missed something or I'm not being stupid or whatever, right? I don't get why people like auto turret. Make sure to comment below if you like it, but for the 3 reasons I just outlined, I've found it always to be mediocre. And don't forget that this is a top loss. And so instead of attacking, you're playing a delayed damage card. If it was on the bottom, it'd probably be playable. The bottom of this card though is pretty good. I mean, heal at range, right? Heal 3 at range 4 is pretty solid for a bottom, but I mean, just not good enough in my opinion. Gas canister, top, just sucks. That trap, it sucks. No good. Who cares about the muddle? Whatever. And 4 damage for a level 6 card in a trap? I mean, even if it was 9 damage. Well, if it was 9 damage, it might be worth it. It'd probably be a loss. A loss at 10 damage would, like, incentivize you to go and try and play it. Anyways, the bottom is actually really good, but only in very specific party composition. So, again, we'll go back to the Spellweaver and Inferno. Would you like to play Inferno 5 turns in a row? This is what you can do. Spellweaver plays Inferno, you play this card the same turn, and the Spellweaver just keeps getting back Inferno. Keeps getting back Inferno every single turn. Maybe my timing was wrong on that, but you get the point. You can help the Spellweaver get Inferno back 4 extra times in addition to playing it the first time. So, what are we going to take? We are going to go back and take Noxious Vials. Noxious Vials just does a lot of good things. Giving somebody back a consumed small item is always going to be good, and the bottom attack helps us with burst damage and synergizes so well with our other losses and their AoE attack patterns. So what are we going to remove? At this point, we're going to remove Flamethrower. We've got, quite a few top losses now, and so something's got to go, and it's going to be Flamethrower. So, Flamethrower out, Noxious Vials in. At level 7, we have Murderous Contraption, and we have Curative Aerosol, and I'm taking Murderous Contraption, and I'm not taking Curative Aerosol. And here's why. So, Murderous Contraption, the bottom, and also the bottom, and the bottom attack, and that bottom attack at 4 range 3. A bottom attack reusable at attack 4 range 3. Always going to be good. The top summon is no good. I don't know why it didn't get a hit point buff. Like, yeah, it attacks more, but it's just going to get murdered by this high of a level of monster. I mean, at level 7, you're playing scenario level 4 on average. Monsters are going to just through the Murderous Contraption like a hot knife through butter. However, it's amazing for that bottom attack. Did I say that? The bottom attack is pretty good. I'm definitely getting some dislikes for how stupid I've been at this part. Curative Aerosol is really good, and if you're in a 4-player party and you're in a healing focused tinkerer mode, you do take this card. You've kept potent potables from before, and you're definitely going to keep this card. I mean, but for a standard build, it's definitely going to be Murderous Contraption. Curative Aerosol is just so good though. Moving twice and healing twice on the top is really useful. A double move on top of a card is really rare. Initiative is good, and the bottom heal is good. I mean, with potent potables, you're crushing out 2/6 heals at range 3. I mean, that's just going to be really good. So, what are we going to take out? Well, we're taking out Reviving Shock. Why are we taking it out? Well, the 2 damage to 2 targets is starting to wear out, and we don't really have anything else to take out. And here's why. So we've got Stun Shot. Definitely can't take that out because of the initiative and the stun. We've got Restorative Mist. Initiative and that move to heal 1 on the bottom is still just too good to remove. Toxic Bolt. We still need that bottom burst damage, and we need that 18 initiative. We have to have at least, 3-4 good initiative cards. And then also Enhancement Field. We can't take Enhancement Field out either. There's nothing else for us to take out except Reviving Shock. At level 8, we have Harsh Stimulants and we have Jet Propulsion, and I'm taking Harsh Stimulants. Jet Propulsion top, we've taken almost no summons. We've taken 1, but we're not going to use it for the summon. But even if you were using the summons, still be useless because you're essentially deferring damage to mostly just save your summon's lives. Like 90% of the time when you use this card, it's probably to save a summon's life. Sometimes you're going to want them to close distance and stuff, but generally no good. And the bottom of Jet Propulsion is actually pretty decent situationally, but because it's paired with this garbage top, we just can't take it. Not possible. Harsh Stimulants, the top, 9 damage is okay. It's probably average for this level card. You do have to take 2 damage to use it too, but it's okay. You are definitely going to be like, yeah, I want to use this card at times. But the bottom is where the real power is, especially in certain party compositions. Think about this card with the Spellweaver's Inferno. I have referenced that a lot in this video. But anything that has, or any class that has multi-target, AoE type of attacks, hits a bunch of things, this card can add tons and tons of damage. So what are we going to do? We're going to remove Enhancement Field because Harsh Stimulants is basically just a better version of Enhancement Field. Yeah, your allies have to take 2 damage, but the +2 attack is totally worth it. And then the top, attack 9, even though it's melee, is still better than Enhancement Field's repeatable attack 3 at range. At level 9, we have Lethal Injection and we have Chimeric Formula. And I'm taking Lethal Injection. The top of Lethal Injection is pretty good. It's worth 20 plus damage on a high level elite, and it's in like the top, I'm going to say 38%. Top 38% of level 9 cards. This is not scientific. I am pulling this out of where. Anyways, it is pretty good though. And then the bottom move for Poison, target all adjacent enemies. Nice, powerful move. You're going to move in Poison, you're going to attack. You've got Harsh Stimulants, so you can attack while in melee range. You don't really want to be in melee range, but because you've now got, a couple of powerful melee abilities, you can be in melee range. Which means if you did decide to keep Flamethrower at any point during this video, I wouldn't hold it against you for sure. And then we've got Chimeric Formula. It's one of my favorite cards in the game, even though I'm not taking it, because of the bottom. One ally within range 3 may recover 1 lost card belonging to an ally adjacent to them. The shenanigans you can get up to with this bottom are ridiculous. You can literally do thousands of damage with a Brute. I'm not going to explain it. I can't remember exactly how it goes either, but I can't explain it in this video because it takes too long. Just Google it. Some guy put together all the math on it. It's pretty convoluted. You'll probably never pull it off, but I still think it's super fun. And then the top, 1 adjacent ally may recover up to 2 of their lost cards, then lose 2 cards. I'm pretty neutral on that. I mean, it can be pretty useful for some classes, but still, it's not something you're really going to do. The fun in this card is definitely with the bottom. So what are we going to remove? Well, at this point, we're going to remove Crankbow. Crankbow has move 4. Lethal Injection has move 4. Poison all adjacent monsters. Drastically better. Top of Crankbow, 6 damage. Top of Lethal Injection, murder someone. Clearly better. So out goes Crankbow, in goes Lethal Injection. Okay, let's talk some general playing strategy. So first of all, the Tinkerer has a large hand size. Because of that, and because of the cards that the Tinkerer has, you've got a lot of flexibility. Don't be afraid to go last sometimes. Don't be afraid to, play a bit of a hybrid support role where sometimes you're helping your allies and sometimes you're doing damage. And don't forget, you've got 12 cards. You are actually pretty tanky. You go in the front, somebody hits you for 6 or 8 damage, poof, there goes a card. That's fine. You've got 2 more cards in hand than the Brute, which actually makes you close to as tanky as the Brute, or maybe as tanky. It depends on what math you run, but essentially you're tankier than you think. Also, don't overlook the power of cards like Enhancement Field bottom and Harsh Stimulants bottom. You can drastically increase your party's damage output by playing those type of cards. So just always think about flexibility. Beginning players' flexibility has more power for them because you don't necessarily understand everything that's going to happen ahead of time, like a more experienced player would. And so you can play a little bit more reactively, and the amount of cards and abilities and the hand size of the Tinkerer really helps with that. Okay, let's talk perks. First, always removing the -1s. Very often you need exact damage to kill a monster and you're basing your plans on that. -1s ruin lives. So remove them. Get rid of them. Then replace the -2 with the 0. And then add 2 +1s. Then add your +3. Then add your +1 wound. Then remove negative scenario effects. After that, do whatever you want, but mostly stay away from rolling because, you know, they don't work as well on advantage and they're just overall a pain. It's much better to kind of just buff your attack deck up. Hopefully this video helped you. If it did, consider dropping it a like. And I just want to say thank you so much for watching and a big thank you to my subscribers and to my patrons. I couldn't do it without you.